This is Let's Talk Big, the Big Read, with Jane Berger and Jen Hazel. The Owens Community College Campus Read is taking place now and throughout the semester, with the goal of bringing awareness of different perspectives through books. The Campus Read book is What My Bones Know by acclaimed journalist Stephanie Fu. It's the story of her reckoning and healing by investigating the little understood science behind complex PTSD and how it's shaped her life. Here, sharing their insight about the book, What My Bones Know, is Owens Community College Director of Library Services, Jane Berger, and Professor of English, Jen Hazel.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Jane Berger,
Kristen Price,
Andrew Erickson,
and of course, I'm Jen Hazel. We are going to talk a little bit today about an event that's coming up Tuesday at 2, Confronting Biases. Can you give us kind of a brief overview of that?
This is one of my favorite events, not even kidding. We are going to realize just how much unconscious bias is part of our lives, our who we are, without even realizing, based on race, gender, socioeconomic status. None of that seems to matter. We all have it. We all hold on to it, and many of us don't even realize it. We will learn through this event how we can identify it and what we might be able to do about it. But I don't want to talk any more about it. We've got two great folks here who are going to elaborate a little bit more.
Absolutely, Jane. We have two of our panel speakers that are going to tell us a little bit about how they're going to attack this angle of talking and about unconscious biases. So, Dr. Price, can you elaborate first?
Yes, thank you, Jen and Jane. So Jane is right. I mean, a quality of being a human is to have biases, and they're not all bad, right? And biases are helpful. They're cognitive shortcuts, but like many cognitive shortcuts, they can become problematic. So there's nothing we can do to make ourselves unbiased at the outset, but just acknowledging them and recognizing them can help us to identify when they are problematic, right? And that's the key. So my job will be to sort of introduce what are implicit biases. So as we've been calling them, sort of unconscious. So those that we're not aware of. Conscious biases have decreased greatly in recent years, although they haven't been eliminated. But so kind of sort of identifying, making the unconscious conscious, right? So identifying those unconscious biases to determine which are problematic is kind of where we're going to start at our event.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Price. Andrew, can you kind of give us a little bit about where you're going to go with this angle, since you will be, not any spoilers here, but Dr. Price will be at the beginning and Andrew will be at the end of the panel. There'll be some other people in between.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for having me. So at this event, I want to specifically talk about biases against people with disabilities, but not from a personal perspective, like my own personal bias, but more societal or political biases. So what I would hope to get into this event is to examine the intersection between disability and justice. So philosophers for a long time, for thousands of years, have talked about justice. We're very concerned about the proper way to arrange our society in a way that's fair for everybody. But recently, a lot of philosophers have started paying attention specifically to issues of justice as it pertains to people with disabilities. For many reasons. First of all, because people with disabilities have come under the radar of a lot of people who are concerned with civil rights. People in our country with disabilities have long been faced with discrimination. They've been faced with, in extreme cases, institutionalization against their will, which are clear cases of injustice, specifically because they're experiencing a disadvantage that they have no control over because of characteristics that they have absolutely no control over. So a lot of people have been talking about what exactly does justice require that we do given this pervasive problem of discrimination against people with disabilities. There are two general sorts of approaches that I want to talk about, and I'm not going to give too much away here, but let me just talk about these two general approaches. One approach is that people with disabilities should be compensated for inequities that they've experienced because of their characteristics that put them at a disadvantage in our society. And this seems to make a lot of sense until you really think about it. A lot of people have pushed back against this by saying compensating people just doesn't seem to go far enough, and it doesn't really seem to work in a lot of cases. After all, if you think about when women entered the workplace, when it was traditionally male-dominated and structures were modified to include bathrooms for women, it would be absurd to think about adding bathrooms as compensating women for some sort of problem that they have. There was no problem there. It's recognizing them as people that drove us to modify the workplace to accommodate women. Similarly, with people with disabilities, maybe the right way to think about it isn't compensating for any sort of deficiency, but rather recognizing people with disabilities as people with their own needs, just like you and I have our own needs. So I'm going to really explore these two different approaches for thinking about what justice requires that we do in the face of discrimination against people with disabilities.
Amazing. This sounds like a you can't miss event.
But an added bonus is that it's going to be a panel discussion, so we want to hear input from everyone who's in attendance. So I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. It will be Tuesday, February 7th at 2 p.m., live streamed and in College Hall 100.
And you can get that live stream link at our website, owens.edu/humanities/read. owens.edu/humanities/read. That's going to do it for us today. Please do not miss this fabulous event. We are so lucky to have all these esteemed professors here to talk about this really important topic. So on behalf of Jane Berger, Dr. Kristin Price, and Andrew Erickson, I'm Jen Hazel. Keep talking big.
Join us again for Let's Talk Big, the big read with Jane Berger and Jen Hazel.